Grouper Shade album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here, and I chat about the latest from Grouper, aka the impeccable Liz Harris. She's been at it for years. And in her early days, she got started by putting out a series of very alien, very desolate sounding ambient albums that, maybe may not be my favorite in her discography, like her self-titled and Way There Crept, but still in those veins, definitely albums that you want to check out. But around the time of Cover the Windows and the Walls and Wide, I really got on track with loving Grouper's music. Here, Liz brought in some very haunting, chilling vocals, which added a new dimension to her very chilling soundscapes. And by the time she got to her first modern classic, Dragging a Dead Deer Up a Hill, I feel like Liz was really on top in these genres of ambient and drone and experimental music. But every time I felt like she had kind of, reached a level and just was like there. She puts out albums like AIA Dream Loss and AIA Alien Observer, and these took things to the next level. These albums are so detailed, so incredibly detailed. They are transcendent. They are like the next evolved form of Grouper. It literally took Liz's music and made it into its own genre practice. It was music you had to sit with, but it was also music that had infinite rewards. Not only that, but most importantly, I feel like a lot of these albums that Liz was putting out around these times were great gateway albums into the weirder side of ambient and drone. They were albums that, may not be for everyone, but as far as these genres go, which are pretty hard to, delve into sometimes, honestly, Liz was making these genres accessible. I mean, look at The Man Who Died in His Boat. I mean, it is so indescribable. It is so far out there, but it's also gorgeous and really emotional. Now, lately, Grouper's style has changed a little bit. Albums like Ruins and Grid of Points are both very concrete albums, but they sort of show Liz getting away from the drone, getting away from the ambient, and, going for a little bit more standard folk and chamber pop. And while not as staggering and wild and stunning, both albums have their merits and are very likable. Now, this new album here, leading up to it, I was certainly very curious to hear Grouper this year. However, I was torn on the singles. One of them I loved, one of them really turned me off to even the thought of listening to this album. This album starts off with Followed the Ocean, and honestly, if you're a longtime Grouper fan, you're going to feel right at home. This is a dreary, hazy ambient track with nods to psych folk. It's always a little hard to put Liz's music and her style into, one word or one genre even, but this is a very Grouper sounding intro. And honestly, it takes me back, man. I love this as an intro, and I will say this, if you weren't a fan of Liz's work in the past, this album probably isn't going to be the one that wins you over, but right now, I'm all for this. It's also, in Liz's own way, incredibly beautiful and emotional. Now, in a lot of ways, this album is kind of the best of both worlds in Grouper's realm. It has a lot of this sort of old experimental stuff from Liz, as well as some of the newer, more chamber pop-oriented material as well. After hearing tracks like Unclean Mind, I was very interested to hear that this was recorded over a 15-year period. It certainly sounds like it, and that's not an insult. Unclean Mind is an awesome track. This is the medium between the weirder side of Liz Harris and the more accessible side of Liz Harris. It is gorgeous. It is impeccably performed and even better wrote. From an emotional standpoint, I haven't heard anything like this from Liz in a long time. On the other hand, Pale Interior, it took a little while to grow on me, but it is once again incredibly compelling. I love how quiet the atmosphere is. It's just so dreary, and it makes her very stark vocals pop even more. In a weird way, this almost reminds me of some old school Mount Eerie. It just has that sense of finality to it. It's also just, really catchy in its own weird way, just enough to make it stick with you. Okay, maybe not catchy, but melodic at the very least. Now, with this approach to this album, there are a few snoozers, not that many. Ode to the Blue Uh, Hearing this before this album really frustrated me. I think it's the worst track here. Hearing it from a distance discouraged me to listen to this album, and honestly, this can be used as an argument against Liz going down the more chamber pop direction. It's really uneventful, boring, and just, oh man, really underwritten as well, which are things that I usually don't say about Liz's music. Promise is also just really disappointing. As a sort of chamber pop tune goes, it's actually one of the most flat here. And it's just really empty feeling. It's not in a good way here. It's not like that sense of finality we got earlier. But Liz Harris has a sound. And for now, it's indescribable, honestly. I mean, my only other major gripe with this album is, honestly, maybe we didn't get that next big leap in our artistic direction. Maybe it is a little safe at points, but for a grouper album in 2021, this is par for the course. Personally, I needed a track like Disordered Mind. I needed it like ASAP. Hearing this alongside the chamber pop of other tunes makes this weirder ambient droney track pop even harder. It's hazy and it is alien, but there is this sense of longing to it. And listen, it is the sort of dreary, dreamy drone that, is very alienating with people as far as groupers music goes. If you're not into this, no, I'm not going to look at you funny. But for me, this is the sort of grouper track that I love putting on some expensive headphones to, drifting off, and just losing it. I really do love the way her hair falls as well. This track, in Liz's own way, has me on the edge of my seat. Don't get me wrong, this track is staggeringly beautiful. But I think what makes groupers music so interesting is no matter how alien, how out there it sounds at times, there's also something very close to home about her music. And that's what excites me. I also love the weird demo quality to this track, and I really do mean that in the most endearing way. As a matter of fact, I think it makes it get under my skin more. And as far as a long-form track goes, I'm pretty sure Basement Mix is just what the doctor ordered. It's pretty whimsical. It almost makes me wish we got more out of this side of Liz Harris. That's another very slight complaint that I have about this album. I am enjoying the hell out of it. I am enjoying it quite a bit, but I do wish we got this sort of ambient drone side of Liz a little bit more here. I was expecting to hear more of it, but it is easily the most chilling thing here. I mean, this is haunting. But it's something that you want to get lost in. It is plus 5 minutes, but it goes by like a breeze. Mostly due to the incredible sound play and the fantastic production. This just reminds me of what I love about groupers music to begin with. It is a great invitation to the weirder side of music. And Kelso Blue Sky is pretty solid as a finale too. It's majestic and dreamy and sweet, probably the most human sounding thing here. However, it is interesting because I feel like this track alone sums up a lot of the thoughts that I have on this entire album. It's really sorrowful and tragic, but it's also oddly warm and inviting. And as far as a songwriting stance goes, I think it's the best one here. So overall, this is a very commendable grouper album in 2021. I know that she has been working on this project for quite some time. A lot of the tracks on here date back quite some ways. We get a lot of the best of both sides of Liz Harris as well. The wonderfully weird, the very inviting to ambient and drone grouper, as well as her more sweet and charming chamber pop and chamber folk as well. If I had to, make a couple of critiques, there are some snoozers, pretty bad snoozers when they get there. And also, this isn't anything wildly bold or new or anything pushing forward in the grouper catalog. It often does sound like stuff that's been recorded over the last few years. But that being said, the material here is still pretty commendable. I'm feeling a light 8 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.